week ago, Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissess on a platform said that she will move to bring laws to Trinidad and Tobago that will seek to increase the age limit of use of marijuana or drugs in that case, or gambling to 25 years, and then also raise the legal age of using alcohol consumption to 21 years. Since then, over the last week, that has thrown open the doors of conversations in Trinidad and Tobago, with the opposition responding in its own way, and citizens also having their own say as it pertains to this shift in policy that the UNC government aims to bring in the next session of Parliament. The Owner-Dealers Association, while in agreement with some of what the Prime Minister had to announce, also have concerns about the potential legislation that's on the horizon. Reval Chattergoon joins me this morning. Reval, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Ryan. Thank you for having me. Good morning to your viewers.
It's an interesting statement that the Owner-Dealers Association put out this weekend, and I have it on my mobile phone, so I'm just going to read a quick bit of it and I'll get you to respond thereafter. A part of the statement from the Owner-Dealers Association says the retail fuel industry, or gas stations, hire a significant number of persons who are new to the workforce and in most cases between the ages of 18 and 21. Will increasing the age limit for consumption of alcohol impact the age limit of our cashiers when customers purchase alcohol at our convenience stores? That's one of several concerns that not only the Owner-Dealers Association has, but also several other NGO groups across Trinidad and Tobago. So let's unpack this potential legislation. You want it, and the Owner-Dealers Association want it to be well thought out, Reval.
Absolutely. So the raising of the limit seems to be a no-brainer, because under the assumption that's, there's a lot of thought would have gone in, there's a lot of statistics. They would have said, well, alcohol abuse in terms of that age limit, probably accidents. But my concern is a little bit different, because the morality of it is, yes, we support it. But there's also something called possession. And the possession is, or it can be, our staff, right? Because consumption is very separate and apart. Let's talk about a cashier. The sale of alcohol is considered sold when it passes through the cashier. Does that mean all of our cashiers have to be age over 21? Let's talk about our merchandisers. If they have custody of it, right? And you've been caught with alcohol, just like marijuana and so on, can you be charged, right? And it's not only for our industry, because once you start to widen that gap, you understand the questions become more and more. Of course, there's nothing for us to see, and it's speculation. So we just want that, these things are being thought of, because we could have the van drivers. Imagine you just got your license, somebody hire you, not as a driver, but even a lorry man, and you have possession of this. Can you be held accountable? So, these are some of our concerns, because once you start to widen that gap, you realize restaurants, supermarkets, convenience stores, anywhere with a playway booth, because it becomes the same thing in terms of gambling acts and so on, right? So it's about understanding where it is, where we want to go with it. I mean, you say all over the world, there are different policies that adapt, but we have a culture that we enact certain things and then try and figure out what we do after.
Right.
So we don't want to be in that position.
The Owner-Dealers Association statement, I didn't take it as a criticism of the potential legislation. In fact, in principle, the Owner-Dealers Association seems to agree that there is a need for some type of adjustment or amendment to the law. What would be your suggestions then? Because I get what you're getting at is there really ought to be strong stakeholder engagement or consultation to ensure that there are no loopholes, especially legal loopholes, in the oncoming legislation.
Well, I think it's a slightly bit more than that, because, so let's talk about in the present makeup, right? The present makeup, you can have seal alcohol, and that's what we sell, right? Seal bottle of beer, seal bottle of rum. And then you have restaurants, alcohol that will pour a glass of wine, heavy alcohol, and so on. There's two different licenses. We are saying probably that if we to maintain our staff, because understand these tens of thousands of people in their first job in most cases will be on the breadline. We are saying that you need to be guided by that. So if I'm in this environment, if something is penciling in the law that once you're partaking in sale of course it will have different barriers and so on, right? Or limitations that you have to be in a commercial environment, tra-la-la-la, right? If that is penciled in, then it don't really affect business as we know it. But if the law simply says, well, okay, consumption and possession is illegal, then we all could face problems, because then you have to have people over 21 basically being employed. So what is going to happen with those tens of thousands? And I don't have all the figures because it's certainly out of my comfort zone. But if we use the SEA results of 17,000 thereabout of students writing SEA, right? So let's just say you have 17,000 people or kids going from 11 to 12 or 12 to 13 in terms of that, and you multiply that by 4 because it's over 21, so you have to be 21. So you have 18, 19, 20, 21, which is 4 years. That's 68,000 students or kids or adults who just simply cannot go to a grocery, a gas station, and so on to look for jobs. So it is a bit hard for them. So I will probably suspect or suggest that being able to handle seal alcohol, somehow pencil there under the premise of commercial activity, because they don't want to see if you increase the limit, and okay, if somebody under the age of 21 could have a seal bottle of rum walking on the road as well. So, it's really a lot of consultation, and we have to, make sure it's well thought of, as well as what are repercussions. Now, when we look at CARICOM countries, and most of us are 18 years of age is the limit for alcohol, how would that affect Carnival? I don't have the figures to say, well, okay, we have X amount of tourism coming in or persons within that age limit for this particular purpose. So we have to really think about it. I mean to say we begging for US, and we don't want to turn it away. We don't want the greatest show on earth and Trinidad is known for that, to suddenly shift because of this legislation. So all what we are saying is that we need to get to the table, think about it, how it would affect every single industry, not just mine, and see what is the best solution moving forward. Yeah, I'm sure we can come with a solution.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective in the sense that we hadn't probably had the full picture of the importance of that age group between 18 and 21, if you get what I'm saying. That age group between 18 and 21, and the importance they play to industries and the economy at that particular age within the industries and the sectors that you would have mentioned. So are you hoping that the government comes, or at least invites associations like yours and other industry leaders to the table in crafting this legislation to ensure that that it really doesn't leave any stone unturned when it comes to what it proposes to do?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that any responsible government, that will be the ideology, because the reality is that no one sector will have all the information. So you need to have a wide cross-section and get all hands on deck and their thought process and stuff, because, on social media, there's a lot of chatter going on about this. Yes, raising the limits and so, but nobody really thought about who's going to sell. How does that affect the economy? How does that affect the people in terms of what we have known? So I am just barely concerned of my staff and the tens of thousands of people who could now be on the breadline, or could not even think about it, because in our industry, I mean, they say plenty people in this country, first job would have been at a local gas station or a supermarket and so forth. and now that may not be the case.
If you had to suggest, if you're part of that roundtable discussion, the government invites you to have a say in what the legislation could potentially propose in Parliament, you would certainly want 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds to be able to work in industries like yours, as you say, quick shops, gas stations, even if they're not allowed to consume. Am I right?
Absolutely, and that is the parameters that you want to be guarded with, because you don't want to have a broad line statement. Well, okay, once you have a sealed bottle of alcohol, that you're okay and there's no issue. But you need to have it a little more in depth to say, well, okay, in commercial activities that you could prove while you're carrying it from a business to a next business in terms of a lorryman. You could have possession of it if you're packing it, cashing it, and so on, right? So there are a lot of things that could be polished, and I think that this could be possible, but we need to see the data, because I'm a little bit concerned in terms of tourism, to be quite honest. If let's just say that 50% of the people come in this country for Carnival falls into that category, well, then we need to be able to say that we need to understand how does that impact us. And of course, we can't say, well, okay, because your skin lighter, or you look like me, you may not be a Trinidadian and you're a tourist. So, there's really some cause for concern.
All right, Reval Chattergoon, thank you very much for your time to talk about the oncoming age limits that the Prime Minister proposes to bring in the next session of Parliament, raising the age limit for legal consumption of alcohol to 21 and raising the legal age for the use of marijuana and for gambling to 25 as well. Appreciate your time, Reval.
Thank you for having me.
Owner Dealers Association President Reval Chattergoon weighing in on the Prime Minister's proposal. She says that she hopes to bring legislation to Parliament that will be passed to raise the legal age limits as it pertains to all three of those. Stay with us here on The Morning Brew. When we come back, we continue to talk about some of the most topical issues in this country, including this one. In your own community, you have had neighbors, you have had friends, you have had cars passing within your community with playing very, very loud music. I know some communities in North Trinidad and Woodbrook, they have an issue with the parties that happens. We're going to be talking about noise pollution next.